Would you sleep with me if I told you I was dying? That's the question Halima never thought she'd hear, especially not from the most eligible billionaire in the Middle East, Khalid Al-Fawd. He had everything: power, beauty, a legacy built before 35, and yet, on that night, under the soft glow of the moonlight that streamed into his private hospital suite, he looked like a little boy, afraid to die alone. But wait, before we dive deeper into this mind-blowing story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You're watching Talefold, where we tell the most unbelievable love stories with twists that'll leave your jaw on the floor. Now, back to this unbelievable tale. When Halima arrived in Dubai, she had no idea her life would take such a wild turn. She was just a 23-year-old girl from a small village in Ghana. She hadn't come for riches. She came for survival. Working as a live-in maid for the Al-Fawd family felt like a miracle, until the miracle turned into a golden prison. The mansion was filled with gold but void of kindness. The servants whispered, the guards watched, and the women who visited Khalid's penthouse came and went like perfume in the air, beautiful, hollow, forgettable. But Khalid? He noticed none of it anymore. After collapsing during a high-profile charity event, Khalid was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune condition. One that caused internal organ failure. One that no amount of money could cure. The doctors gave him a year. That was 10 months ago. From the outside, the world thought he was just on a spiritual retreat. But in truth, Khalid was slowly fading. And no one knew, except his household staff. Halima had always been invisible to him, until the night she found him unconscious on the marble bathroom floor. She screamed for help, called the nurse, held his head in her lap and whispered calming words in Twi, her native tongue. He looked at her with those deep green eyes, confused, vulnerable, and strangely at peace. From that day forward, Khalid began to request her personally. No one understood why. She wasn't the prettiest maid, or the most educated, but there was something about her silence, her stillness. She treated him like a man, not a god. He started asking her to sit while he read, then to stay while he ate, then, just to stay. Until finally, one night, he looked into her eyes and said the unthinkable, Halima, I'm dying, and before I go, I want to know what it feels like to be held. To be touched, not because of who I am, but because someone wants to. She froze. I don't want your pity. I want your honesty. You're the only person in my life who hasn't lied to me. Tears welled in his eyes. Real tears, not the kind he used for press. Would you sleep with me, just once? I need to feel something real before I'm gone. Halima was speechless. Her heart pounded, her lips parted, but no words came. Was this manipulation? Was this desire? Or something deeper? She didn't know yet, but what she was about to find out would shake her to the core. Because Khalid wasn't just dying. He was hiding a secret. One that would drag Halima into a world of danger, inheritance, and betrayal. Yes, but not for the reason you think. That was Halima's answer. Quiet, steady, but it hit Khalid like thunder in a quiet valley. He blinked, unsure he heard her right. What did you say? She stepped closer, hands trembling but eyes fierce. You said you wanted something real before you die. I'll give you that, but it's not sex you need, Khalid, it's the truth. His lips parted, stunned, confused, intrigued. Halima leaned in. You think touching someone will make you feel alive? No, it's being seen. It's being loved for who you are, not for your empire. Khalid had spent years being touched by people who only wanted something from him. Lovers, business partners, even family, but no one had seen him the way Halima just did. That night, they didn't sleep together. Instead, they stayed up till dawn talking about everything. He told her about his lonely childhood, how his mother died giving birth to him, how his father remarried and practically abandoned him to nannies and tutors, how he built his empire not out of ambition, but as revenge against being ignored. Halima told him about her village, about the baby brother she lost to malaria because they couldn't afford medicine, about how she promised her mother on her deathbed she would one day live in a house with running water. He laughed, she cried. They fell asleep on the same bed, not as master and maid, but as two broken souls who had finally found shelter in each other. And that's when it began. The slow, dangerous fall into love. Khalid's health didn't improve. In fact, the doctors said he had maybe weeks left. But suddenly, he started living. He had breakfast with Halima on the balcony every morning. He danced with her in the hallway. He began sketching again, something he hadn't done since his teen years. The staff noticed. The mansion, once as cold as a museum, began to feel alive again. But not everyone was happy. Especially not Rashid. Khalid's jealous cousin, and the only other male heir in the Al Fahd bloodline. Rashid had been patiently waiting for Khalid to die so he could take over the empire. But now, he was hearing whispers. That the billionaire was in love with a servant girl. That he was planning to rewrite his will. That he might, God forbid, marry her before he died. If that happened, Halima would inherit everything. Rashid couldn't let that happen. Not after what he did to ensure Khalid's sickness would never heal. But we'll get to that. One day, as Khalid and Halima sat beneath the garden's olive tree, he turned to her and said, "Marry me." She gasped, "What, Khalid? I'm dying, but I don't want to die without knowing what it feels like to call someone mine. I don't want to leave everything I've built to vultures. I want my legacy to have your name on it." Halima's world tilted. Was this love, or a goodbye gift? Before she could answer, a loud crash echoed from inside the house. The door burst open. Rashid stood there, holding a folder in his hand, eyes burning. "So, this is the maid who has bewitched you?" he sneered. "You won't live long enough to regret this, cousin." And with that, secrets Halima never expected were about to surface, starting with what was inside that folder. "You should have died quietly, cousin, now you've made me your enemy." Rashid Al Fahd. Khalid stiffened. Halima instinctively stepped in front of him, shielding him with her body, even though she had no idea what Rashid was capable of. But it was the folder, thick, manila, sealed with a crimson ribbon, that sent ice down her spine. Rashid's voice dripped with venom. "Before you rewrite your will, maybe your sweet little maid should know what kind of man she's planning to marry." Khalid didn't flinch. "You're bluffing." Rashid smirked. "Am I?" He opened the folder and began pulling out documents, photos, emails, reports. He tossed them like daggers onto the garden table between them. Halima froze. There were lab results, prescription slips, test retractions, a name she didn't recognize, Dr. Aziz Hamari. Khalid's face paled. "No," he whispered, "you didn't." "Oh, I did," Rashid snarled. "The doctor you trusted? Paid, threatened, replaced. You were never supposed to live past 6 months." Halima gasped. "You poisoned him?" she breathed. Rashid shrugged, slowed the treatment, gave the wrong dosages. Nothing traceable, just enough to make sure my dear cousin faded. Like a candle in the wind. Peacefully, quietly, until you showed up. Halima's heart raced. "Why? Why?" Rashid hissed. "Because this empire was supposed to be mine. I've been standing in his shadow since I was born. Always, Khalid the genius, Khalid the golden boy. And now, this? He leaves it all to a maid?" Khalid surged forward, coughing violently but defiant. "You tried to kill me for money? For destiny," Rashid said coolly. "But now you've complicated things." His gaze shifted to Halima. And that's when she felt it, for the first time. That cold, twisted look that told her she wasn't safe anymore. Khalid stepped in front of her. "If you touch her, you'll what?" Rashid interrupted. "Die a little faster?" Halima's body shook, but her voice didn't. "You won't win," she said. "Not while he's alive." Rashid chuckled darkly. "Then I guess I'll have to speed things up again." With that, he dropped one final document onto the table. A death certificate. Khalid's. Already signed, already stamped, already dated for the next week. Halima stared at it, horrified. "What is this?" Rashid grinned. "Insurance. For when things don't go according to plan." And then he turned to leave. But before walking away, he said one last thing. "Enjoy your fairy tale, Halima. It ends in 6 days." That night, Halima lay awake in the dark, Khalid sleeping restlessly beside her, weak and sweating. The clock was ticking. If Rashid had already faked Khalid's death papers, then this was no longer just about love. It was survival. But Halima wasn't just a maid anymore. She was the only thing standing between a man's life and a legacy soaked in blood. And she was about to fight for him, in ways no one expected. If he forged a death certificate, what else has he already buried? Halima barely slept. She sat on the cold marble floor of the bedroom, knees to her chest, as Khalid tossed and turned in fevered sleep. Rashid's threat echoed in her head. "Enjoy your fairy tale. It ends in 6 days. 6 days. That was all she had to protect him. But how do you fight a man with influence, power, and corruption stitched into every corner of Dubai? How do you fight from inside a mansion that doesn't belong to you? Simple. You start by finding out what he's afraid of." At dawn, Halima slipped out of the bedroom and crept to the old west wing of the mansion, a part of the house no one used anymore. That's where she remembered something strange Khalid once told her. "When I was a boy, I used to hide from the world behind walls, literally. My secret place, my only safe place." Back then, she had laughed. Now, she understood. She ran her fingers along the sandstone wall until she heard a hollow knock. Her heart leapt. She pressed harder, and the panel shifted. Behind it, wrapped in an aged leather belt, was a dusty old journal. Khalid's handwriting covered the pages. Dates, memories, and confessions. But one page had a ribbon tucked into it. She flipped to it. March 3, 2015. I caught Rashid in my father's study again. I think he forged Baba's signature. If anyone finds this journal and something happens to me, look in the villa's underground archives. The real will is there. Halima's hands trembled. The real will. She flipped to another page dated years later. Rashid is obsessed with inheritance. He won't stop until I'm out of the picture. I started getting sick after my 30th birthday. I suspect him, but no one believes me. If I die, please, don't let him win. Halima's chest tightened. Khalid knew. He had known all along. But no one listened. Until now. She rushed back to Khalid's room, waking him gently. Khalid, she whispered. There's something I need to show you. He opened his eyes slowly, pale and weak. What is it? I found your journal. You hid it in the west wall. You wrote about Rashid. You wrote about the real will. He stared at her, dazed at first. Then his eyes widened in sudden clarity. Yes, he rasped. It's in the vault. The old family archives under the East Garden. Behind the lion statue. But it's sealed. Only my fingerprint and a bloodpin open it. Halima's mind was racing. Then we need to go. Now. Before Rashid realizes I found the journal. Khalid grabbed her wrist weakly. No. It's too dangerous. If he sees you, I don't care. She knelt beside him, pressing her forehead against his. You saved me when you didn't have to. Now I'm going to save you. Later that night, while the mansion slept, Halima crept out in silence, clutching the journal like a lifeline. She reached the East Garden. The lion statue stood tall and cold under the moonlight. She placed her palm on the lion's paw, just as Khalid described, and whispered the bloodpin code, 13. 13. 7. The ground rumbled slightly, and the stone began to shift. A staircase appeared, leading down into darkness, but as she descended, she heard something that froze her blood. Footsteps. Behind her, a voice echoed from above. Looking for secrets, little maid? She turned. It wasn't Rashid, it was Lena, Khalid's former lover. And Rashid's secret ally, with a gun in her hand, and a smile on her lips. You think this is a fairy tale, Halima? This isn't love, it's a war over legacy. Lena. Halima froze at the sight of Lena, the raven-haired beauty once known across Dubai's tabloids as Khalid's off and on lover. Most believed she'd vanished after Khalid got sick. But now here she was, alive, angry, and armed. The gun shimmered under the moonlight. Her stilettos echoed against the stone. And the hate in her eyes could melt steel. You really thought you'd sneak into the Al Fahd vault, alone? Halima's voice was firm, though her heart raced. What do you want, Lena? Lena laughed, cold and sharp. I want what Rashid promised me. Power, money, a title. You think this is about Khalid's health? No, it's about his signature. If he dies without changing his will, everything goes to Rashid. She stepped forward. But if he rewrites that will and includes you? Her lip curled. Then I get nothing. And Rashid's entire plan crumbles. Halima's grip on the journal tightened. So what now? You shoot me? She said. Right here? That's the plan? Lena tilted her head. Not yet. First, I'll take that journal. Then I'll lock you in the vault with all of Khalid's precious secrets. By the time they find your body, he'll be gone. And so will you. She lunged. Halima ducked, barely dodging her. The journal went flying. Pages scattered like feathers as Lena tackled her to the ground. They struggled in the narrow stairwell. Fingers clawed. A knee to the stomach. Then, bang, the gun went off. Both women froze. But it wasn't Halima who was bleeding. Lena staggered back, clutching her shoulder. Halima turned. Khalid stood at the top of the stairs, weak, pale, but holding a second gun. I told you to stay away from her, he whispered hoarsely. Lena screamed in pain. You shot me? For her? Khalid's knees buckled. Halima rushed to catch him, dropping the gun from Lena's hand and kicking it down the stairs. You shouldn't be out of bed, she said, tears flooding her eyes. Khalid coughed, blood flecking his lips. Couldn't let her hurt you. Then, with Halima supporting his weight, he pressed his hand to the scanner near the vault door. It beeped. A low rumble followed as the vault slid open, revealing shelves of documents, sealed boxes, and one large black case with his father's crest. Inside it was the real will. Khalid opened it with a trembling hand. There, in bold ink, was the truth. His father had never intended Rashid to inherit anything. Everything, was to go to Khalid and his future wife and child. Halima gasped. So Rashid forged the public will. Khalid nodded. Years ago. No one ever knew. Then his eyes met hers. But now, I have a choice. I can destroy his lies. And I want you by my side when I do. Halima felt her heart tremble. She hadn't expected any of this. Love, danger, legacy. But one thing was certain. She wasn't a maid anymore. She was Khalid's last hope, and his greatest risk. But just as they turned to leave, Halima spotted a sealed envelope, wedged in the corner of the vault. Her name was on it. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a photograph of her mother, holding a baby. Khalid, what is this? She whispered. Khalid stared at it in horror. And that's when the truth hit them. Halima wasn't just his maid. She was connected to his past in a way that could destroy everything they thought they knew. You weren't brought into my life by chance, Halima. You were brought back, Khalid. Halima stared at the photograph like it was a ghost come to life. The image was weathered, edges curled from time, but clear enough to see what mattered. A dark-skinned woman with soft eyes and a tired smile, holding a newborn baby wrapped in silk. The name scrawled on the back? Khalid, April 5, 1992. Taken by Layla before they left. Halima's throat tightened. That's my mother. Khalid blinked slowly, as if time had frozen around them. You're what? My mother, Halima repeated, voice trembling. That's Adiza Ibrahim. She died when I was 10. She never told me who my father was. Only that he came from a world she was forced to leave behind. Khalid stumbled back, grabbing the wall. No, that's not possible. But the pieces, they were clicking. The timeline, her presence in this mansion, his mother's long-past visit to Ghana, the one she only briefly mentioned in her diaries, as a summer of heartbreak. You might be my sister? Khalid whispered. The silence dropped like thunder. Halima stepped back in horror. No, that can't be right. We kissed, Khalid said, voice raw. I told you I loved you. We slept together, she whispered, hands shaking violently. For a moment, the world spun on the edge of collapse. The tension, the intimacy, the memories of shared glances and stolen touches, all suddenly tainted by the terrifying possibility of blood. Khalid sank to the ground. His body racked with pain, but it was no longer from illness. It was from grief. Rashid knew, he said suddenly, his eyes wide. That snake, he planned this. Halima looked down at the envelope again. There was more, a letter inside, written in a woman's delicate handwriting. To whoever finds this. If you are reading this, then the truth has found you. I was forced to flee Dubai after the Sheikh's wife discovered I was pregnant. She threatened my life and the life of my unborn child. I begged Khalid's father to protect us, but his silence was my answer. So I ran, back to Africa, back to shame. My daughter, Halima, deserved better. She deserved justice. If she ever returns here, she is not a servant. She is an al-Fad. Adiza. Halima couldn't speak. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Khalid stared at her like she was someone he'd never seen before. That means, you're not my sister, he said, a flicker of hope in his voice. You're my cousin, my uncle's daughter. My father wasn't your father. He just abandoned your mother. Halima blinked. So you and I aren't related by blood? Khalid nodded, slowly, shakily. Rashid knew this. That's why he wanted you close. To make me fall for you. And then tear it apart. Halima's heart surged with rage and relief. Rashid had orchestrated everything, from poison to seduction, just to break Khalid down, piece by piece. She dropped the letter, her eyes burning with a new fire. We end this, she said. Tonight. Khalid nodded. Together. But just as they turned to leave the vault, the lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the staircase, and a voice echoed from above. Very touching, but fairy tales always end in blood. It was Rashid, and this time, he wasn't alone. You thought love was your weakness, Khalid? But it was always your weapon. Halima. The vault door slammed shut. The lights flickered, then died completely. Halima's breath hitched as she reached for Khalid's hand in the pitch-black silence. Somewhere above them, footsteps echoed. Cold, calculated, coming closer. Then came the voice. It's poetic, isn't it? You two trapped in the grave of your own secrets. I warned you, Khalid. But you just had to fall for the maid. Rashid. Khalid stood, swaying, but fierce. You lied. You poisoned me. You forged our father's will. But worst of all, you underestimated her. Rashid chuckled. You think this girl can save you? She's a servant, a mistake your father buried. And once I finish what I started, she'll be nothing more than a forgotten footnote in the Al-Fahd history books. Halima stepped forward. Funny, I was thinking the same thing about you. Suddenly, a spotlight cut through the dark. A hidden camera blinked red. What's that? Rashid barked. Halima smiled coldly. Insurance. While Rashid gloated and plotted, Halima had secretly activated one of Khalid's old security archives. It recorded every word, every confession, and was already streaming to Khalid's offshore legal team. You're being watched, Rashid. And this time, your mask won't save you. Rashid's face twisted in rage. He lunged toward Khalid, but a deafening gunshot rang out. The bullet grazed Khalid's arm, but the shooter wasn't Rashid. It was Lena, bleeding, limping, and half mad, but furious. If I can't have you, Khalid, no one will. Before Rashid could react, she turned the gun on him too. You promised me the world, she hissed. Instead, you used me. Lied to me, played me. The standoff spiraled, everyone shouting, guns shaking, and then, Khalid collapsed. Blood pooled beneath him. Halima screamed and dropped to her knees. Khalid, stay with me. His pulse was fading. No, no, no. I haven't told you yet, I love you. I love you, Khalid. His fingers brushed her cheek weakly. Then let me go knowing that. Don't you dare, she sobbed. You survive this. You fight, not just for me. For everything Rashid stole. You are not dying here. And then, a miracle. Flashing blue lights cut through the garden outside. Police, Interpol, sirens blared. Rashid turned, just as armed officers stormed the estate. Lena fired in panic. Chaos exploded, but Halima shielded Khalid with her body, refusing to let him die. When the dust settled, Rashid and Lena were both in cuffs. Khalid was rushed to the hospital. And Halima? She went with him. 3 weeks later, Khalid sat in a wheelchair by the private hospital's fountain, a warm breeze brushing his skin. Halima stood beside him, wearing a white silk dress and a quiet smile. Turns out, she said, the will's real. You inherit everything. Rashid's going to prison, Lena's facing charges, and the world is finally seeing you, for who you are. Khalid smiled faintly. And who's that? Halima reached out and took his hand. A man who lost everything, only to find something better. What's that? Me. 1 year later, the Al-Fahd estate was reborn. Halima, now co-owner of the Al-Fahd Foundation, walked beside Khalid, no longer a maid, but a partner, a lover, and soon, a wife. A photo of her mother hung in the main hall, and beneath it, a quote Khalid had chosen himself: blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. They had survived betrayal, secrets, and near death. But in the end, they chose love. If this story pulled your heart in 10 directions, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. More jaw-dropping drama and twists coming soon, only here on Tale Fold, where every story folds into something deeper. Don't forget to like, comment your favorite twist, and share with a friend who loves drama as much as you do. Until next time, keep unfolding.